Right then, guys, welcome to what is going to be the third episode of the Web Warrior Protocols podcast. Today, I'm joined by Chloe from Chloe Paints.
Morning? No, wait, no. It's evening. Good God.
Yes, it's been a long weekend.
It's been a very long weekend.
I'm also joined by Rhys. Rhys, you don't really have like a site or anything, so we'll just say Rhys from Rhys and Incorporated.
and Elsa can be included, but yeah.
Rhys, Lewis, Elsa, otherwise known as the Swindon lot that play at Forest Lawn Game Swindon.
Yes.
So, we have actually done this before, haven't we? Previously, I think we all went to an event together. I don't know if it was it at Element as well?
Yeah, it was
Element. Yeah, Spring at Marvel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've actually recorded a very similar podcast episode before with the three of us. However, there was a lot going on, some issues with the computer. Long story short, it didn't get edited, and by the time I would have been able to edit it, which is around about now, it just feels like it might not have been entirely relevant. However, this weekend, we all joined one another for two events. We had the Nations 2023 on the Saturday Element Games, and on Sunday we had the Infinity Series event that Tony ran at Element as part of the 2023 Infinity Series. Just quickly, Rhys, you and I were on a team together. The team name was super original, so thank you, Team Captain Rhys, for choosing Team Swindon and Aaron.
Just wanted to plug you in there. Wanted to get name drop you.
Yeah,
give you the title.
That's fair. Chloe, you were, however, on a separate team. We did play your team at one point, I think.
You were you were our first lineup, and it was a great start to the morning. That's exactly what I want to see.
You were the wooden spoons?
We were the Infinity Spoons.
The Infinity Spoons, apologies.
Yeah, the idea was to come as last as possible, and we almost did it.
Yes, although you were the Infinity Spoons, you didn't quite get the wooden spoons, but that's not what it's all about, because you bought your own wooden spoons anyway.
Yeah, we knew if just to guarantee that we would leave with the spoons, we brought the spoons, but they were also our what the coaches used to figure out who was where.
Yeah, the pairing cards.
The pairing cards, yeah. The pairing spoons.
I thought they were a great idea. Each of yours had like a gem on the background.
And then the very interestingly painted faces of the leaders, which Red Skull was probably the best I've ever seen.
The Red Skull one was great. It was absolutely terrifying.
And they were horrifying to look at. They were.
You had the blade spoon as well, which I really liked. So they were really cool. Rhys, you were our team captain, and lucky for us, you were super well organised, weren't you? You bought nothing for us to use as pairing cards.
Yeah, I didn't quite get this memo. So we had some playing cards to use. I mean, I was the king. We had Elsa as the queen. Lewis was the Joker. We had Mark as our Jack, and what were you, Aaron?
I was the Ace of Spades. I don't know if either of you guys saw, but Ron's partner made like these really fancy custom edited ones, which was each of the players, but as the leader or one of the characters from the affiliation they were playing.
Yeah, they were lovely. Quinn's one in the Iron Man suit was my favourite.
Yeah, Quinn as
Iron Man. It made me feel
a
bit guilty because the Infinity Spoons actually won the best judges cards. Well, captain's cards thing, and I thought, it's funny, but come on, there was more effort put in. I mean, no offense to Vickers' fiance, she did a very hard effort painting all the spoons, but
yeah, it was Tom's missus that did it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think what happened is that it was either Quinn or Jonah's responsibility to enter the cards.
It was Jonah.
They didn't.
I saw him running in just as they were packing all the other cards up and putting them down. I was like, yeah, I think it's a bit late.
Yeah, so sadly, I think that's probably why they might have missed out on that one. Nevertheless, though, it was a great event. I don't know what you guys think. It was a very hot event, but it was very enjoyable. The Nations was.
It was fantastic, but yeah, definitely way too many people in too hot of a room. It was an endurance event to make it to the end.
Oh, for sure, definitely. And I, at some points, did consider just going, you know what, I don't think I can do this. It was roasting. Rhys, did you feel the same?
Oh, it was, yeah. I mean, luckily I managed to actually, during lunch break, and managed to actually go back to the hotel room for a cold shower, which
Oh.
helped.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty
hot.
dire in there, and it's like when you go out and it wasn't even that much of a reprieve going outside, and yeah, it's just
Yeah, it was
way.
unrelenting, and it carried on into the Sunday as well, which wasn't helpful. Back to some of the finer details, such as what we ran affiliation-wise. I obviously was able to take my Web Warriors. Rhys, what were you running?
So I was running Avengers with 2 Hulks and a Midnight Sun Splash.
Yeah, so you had Voodoo, Immortal Hulk, and Blade, I think it was, as your 3 Midnight Suns.
And Iron Fist as well.
And Iron Fist as well, nice. Chloe, who did you run?
So I just had pretty much standard Avengers, actually. Nothing too fancy. The only splash I had that was not affiliated was Crimson Dynamo, but I did run around with 5 leaders.
You ran a what?
I had 5 leaders in the list, and my only splash was Crimson Dynamo.
5 leaders? What leaders are these?
Cable, basic, Steve Rogers Cap, Crimson Dynamo, Captain America, Sam Wilson, and Black Panther. So I could have had lots of affiliations in my list, but I couldn't quite do them all.
Yeah, you chose instead to just take all of the leaders which meant that no one else on your team could play any of those affiliations.
Well, when we were doing it, I originally really wanted to do A-Force, because that's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
But there was a bit too many A-Force characters spread out all over the place.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much left to take, so I figured, well, there's a lot of Avengers, and I'll pick all the leaders that we don't have affiliations for.
That's fair. I think the A-Force are quite an interesting roster because just due to the nature of them essentially being the affiliation that is most of the female heroes, it means that in a team event, you'll probably find a lot of the crossover sort of eliminates them from a doable affiliation.
100%. And that was the struggle we came up with. I mean, I could have potentially have done it, but I was quite limited. Admittedly, considering Squirrel Girl and Gwenpool had been released before the event started, I could have gotten away with it, actually, upon reflection. But I still had fun running Avengers. It's the first time I've actually done an Avengers list fully affiliated. I'd normally splash in, like, Hulkbuster and Hulk into my A-Force, and then do triple Hulk at 18 threat as Avengers.
Yeah. By triple Hulk, you mean Core Hulk? Sorry, not Core Hulk. You mean Bruce Banner Hulk, She-Hulk, and Hulkbuster.
Hulkbuster, yeah. So that's my triple Hulk, yeah.
Yeah,
can't quite do Immortal Hulk, and Standard Hulk, sadly.
Yeah,
sadly. I wish I could, but
something I found out that I don't know how I didn't realise sooner, actually, whilst we're talking about doubling up on characters, is the fact that obviously Agent Venom and OG Venom are different characters. I know full well that they are in the lore. I know it's Flash Thompson and Eddie Brock, but for some reason it just never occurred to me.
Right.
Game mechanically wise, because it's the alias that matters, not the name. I could take both, so I might be considering trying that at some point. I think that could be cool.
Oh, I thought that was like a conscious decision on your part that you didn't want to play with Agent Venom, but that was you thought you couldn't.
No, so I knew I could take both from my roster, obviously.
Oh, I see. You think
you can field them both.
Field them, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why I had just a proper blank moment that I've just not got round to building him, because I was just like, oh, but if I ever have to choose one, it'll be the Venom I like, and I don't see the point in running 2 of the same in one team. And then it's like, oh,
well, now you can. Like how the people that are going to be running Ghost Rider and Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Yeah, but it's Frank Castle, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can't have Punisher and Cosmic in the same list.
What are we going to do? We can't play Punisher with
Ghost
Rider. Oh, no.
I think, honestly, that means we're going to see very little Cosmic Ghost Rider just because of everyone wanting to run the Punisher.
I mean, in fairness, at the weekend event, my brain is still cooked slightly, but on the team event, every Asgard list had Punisher in it.
That's quite interesting. I wonder why that is. I didn't notice that.
Well, Athena had it, and I know there was every because it was mentioned, I think, in another podcast, and I have a feeling it's down to the nature of the event. Because you were limited on the characters that you could take, for example, maybe you wanted, say, Winter Soldier on your backline, but Punisher fills a similar role, you just can't have him affiliated in the list.
Yeah, exactly. I know we were discussing it in our criminal syndicate list as a possibility because, like you say, you couldn't take Winter Soldier, so it is definitely I mean, with the nature of kind of all the characters not being possible, it's he maybe could have stuck into some of this, but
Yeah, you sometimes need these sort of substitute characters that you wouldn't normally see on the tabletop.
And it's what makes an event like this quite a lot of fun to do the list building and having to say, I don't really want to have that crisis in my list, but I'll put up with it.
Yeah, that's sure. Speaking of making it quite fun and interesting, during our first round, when both our teams played one another, for some reason, I was 110% certain that Tom Vickers, who I was paired against, who is your team captain, Chloe.
Yep.
For some reason, I thought he was playing Guardians. So I built a team of web warriors that was like built to deal with like the Guardians sort of shenanigans and whatnot. And then we revealed rosters, and Tom was like, "Oh, so here's my Black Order," and I was like, "This has gone horribly wrong." I was like, "Oh, I thought you were playing Guardians." He's like, "Nope, Black Order." I'm like, "Oh dear." Luckily, it wasn't too much of a major issue, as Tom had gone for Corvus-led Black Order at 17 threat. But I think, say for example, if we'd have been playing 16 instead, that could have ended a whole lot different, because the type of list I'd run into Guardians as opposed to Black Order for 16 threat is entirely different.
100%.
Nevertheless, during the first round, Chloe, who did you play from our team? Was it Rhys or was it someone else?
Yeah, Chloe had a terrible opponent round one. Didn't
it was absolutely horrible. I mean, just no. I mean, I will admit, I got into the morning and I was absolutely exhausted. I couldn't wake myself up. I probably should have had a coffee. Then I realised it's your team, and my hopes already go down. I'm like, well, I don't know. I've had a lot of practice with the list, but I've never run it in tournaments, and I'm across from Rhys. This is gonna go fun. I don't think it went too well for me that game, sadly.
No, it was definitely you went on the aggressive, obviously Avengers mirror, Hulk mirror.
Yeah.
And it could have gone very differently. It was on because of was it Riots and Hammers?
I'll bring up Longshanks, because I feel like we'll need it later on anyway.
It was because it was double D, and it was.
I'm remembering it now.
In round 2, you very very nearly dazed my Hulk and left him on one.
Yep. No, now I'm remembering. I feel like I repressed this game because then Hulk decided to run away to the other side of the board whilst tapping every extremis console along the way, and went from about 1 health or 3 health to back to 9.
It was 1 health up to 9. Yeah, all of his friends chipped in, gave him little heals. The Sam leadership healed him a little bit, and he managed to keep hold of his hammer, which was definitely useful in just getting the score.
How much of a mirror was it? First of all, who was your leader, Rhys?
So I only had for the Avengers leaders, I only had Sam. So my leader was Sam. I think I can bring up the exact list I had.
Who was your leader?
I went with Steve for that one. I think I only used Sam once in the entire event, but he was a leader. I think for.
And what threat value was it your game? Sorry, you said it was Hammers and Riots.
Yes, it was 18 threat. I don't have 8. I had. Oh, now you're asking.
And who had priority, out of curiosity? Can you remember?
I'm bringing up nations, so I'll actually be able to answer it for us. Let's go for game 1.
I don't know if it shows me what, because I can't. I definitely had Sam, Hulk.
It won't show you what team you run.
No, Sam, Hulk, Black Widow.
So it was priority to Rhys.
Voodoo,
and it was for 18 threat.
Yeah, Black Widow, Hulk, Sam, Voodoo, and a 3, which I'm pretty sure was Iron Man. Yes, it was Iron Man.
Yeah, you had Iron Man.
Helios laser.
Oh, it was Sam, Hulk, Voodoo, Iron Man, and who? Sorry,
Black Widow.
And Black Widow. So Sam, Hulk, Voodoo, Iron Man, and Widow. And Chloe, you had Steve,
Hulk, think I had Crimson Dynamo. Crimson
Yeah.
Dynamo, because he's one of my favourites. And then I think it was Gwenpool.
No, it was Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah. Sorry, that was me the fault for it.
Not really. Well, it is a mirror, obviously, to some extent, but only one crossover with characters, which is Hulk himself.
Yep.
I mean, he's a pretty big crossover, I'm sure. You both noticed it, but having a Hulk off can end either really well for one side or just leave nothing but the Hulk remaining. So, Rhys, did you say you won that one?
Yes, so I managed to. I think I won on. I think the score
17-4. It ended up being.
But yeah, but it the score didn't really. Yeah, how kind of.
It didn't reflect the game.
Yeah, through through Steve's leadership, Chloe kind of had much better turn ones than I was just kind of moving up, picking up objectives, and your turn one, I think you dealt like 7 or 8 damage to Hulk.
I think 8 damage to Hulk. Yeah. I almost killed Voodoo by dropping it. Yeah, it was a game where I was throwing every building on the table at you.
Yes.
Voodoo almost got killed by just a single building dropped on his head. I think I'd cleared the board of terrain by the end of the game.
No.
I definitely felt the lack of brace in this in that run.
Nice. So true Hulk fashion to absolutely do a sweep of the table, almost similar to what Brotherhood do a little bit with the train. Speaking of train, some of the boards were different to what I've played on before, because I think there were a couple. There was definitely at least one board I played on where every piece of train was size 2, and that was really interesting in a sense because it meant anyone bigger than that could never have cover. But it also meant there wasn't there wasn't as much lethality to having the train thrown at you.
Which was quite a contrast to our board. I think we had at least 3 size 4 pieces and 1 size 3 right next to all the objectives.
Yeah, so I imagine that has a huge impact on the game, especially when you're playing those characters that can throw around that size 4 train.
Might be why I brought Captain Marvel with me, to be honest.
Yes, Captain Marvel on one flank, Hulk on the other. I was just getting size 4s thrown left, right, and centre. Nice.
So overall, in that round, I won my game against your team captain Chloe, Tom. Yep. It was a really solid game, even with the surprise of Black Order over Guardians. Then I think for the rest of the team, Rhys, you won, Elsa won, Lewis won, and I think Badger. Did Badger lose? Who did Badger play?
Yes, I think Badger did lose.
He lost to Kev, who was running Midnight Suns.
Nice. So we went 4-1 for the first round. Our second round for Team Swindon and Aaron, that is, we went up against Amph's team, didn't we, Rhys?
Yes, that was it. That was the next one.
Who did you end up playing against out of Amph's team, Rhys?
So I ended up playing. Oh yes, how could I forget? I ended up playing Tobey Maguire himself, Ian Marley.
Ian Marley dressed up as Tobey Maguire, but he actually looked like a member of the Beatles.
Props to him, by the way, considering the temperature, and he was wearing that full black suit with the wig.
Oh my!
I do not know how he was alive.
It was funny, but it was more funny that nobody had any idea who he was meant to be.
I definitely had no idea until kind of he mentioned, Spider-Man 3, and then I was like, okay, obviously I can see that, but I wasn't in that headspace clearly, but yeah.
How did your game against the Bully Maguire himself go, Rhys?
Oh, it was. I mean, it was against Web Warriors. I mean, Ian is lovely, and the thing I most was impressed by Ian's and his costume was the fact that even when no one was really looking, he was wandering around, kind of throwing out finger guns, which was kind of dedication to the bit. But
dedication.
But yeah, he kind of dragged my bum across the ground with Web Warriors and just kind of kept on dragging me off points, and did not go great.
Do that. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, who only silly people play Web Warriors, don't they?
Yeah. Speaking of which, I got put up against the team captain from their side again, so I ended up playing Amp, who's an absolute legend. He's always great to play. This time, he actually did have Guardians. I didn't get confused. So we had a really solid, interesting game. Gamora was an absolute pain in my backside. I've got a little confused early on with how her attacking Black Hat worked. So obviously she can't use the wing unit tokens, but she also can't use the Deadliest Woman in the Galaxy superpower to get the extra hits, which really sort of slowed Gamora down a little bit. So that worked out reasonably well. I think our game ended something along the lines of 18-11. It was a really solid game. It's always a pleasure to play AMP. Lastly, Chloe, obviously, we don't have enough time to talk about everyone on your team, but how
Nope.
did your
It was
second
another
game
mirror
go?
match. Another mirror match. Avengers on Avengers. Though this time I was running Sam Wilson, Hulk
Yep.
again, and I had Gwenpool. 15 threat against Gerard, the team captain again. That didn't go. In fairness, it was 24-14. So it lost for me, but it was the last round where I lost. It was being struggle for the cube. Hulk dazed himself, died,
Oh, no.
and then he just went and swept all the points up.
Who did you
Yeah.
say that you had? Sorry, you had Sam Wilson,
Hulk,
Hulk,
Black
Gwenpool.
Widow. And...
Oh, Black Widow. Sorry.
Oh, not yeah. Sadly, Black Widow did not do very well. She went outside the gammas, picked up cubes, and died very, very quickly.
Yeah, unfortunately, with that much damage from the objectives alone, it's going to punish those low health ball characters. And it really can, as you probably must have found out, even catch out those big ones like Hulk sooner or later if they're not too careful.
Well, it was a Hulk mirror match again as well. I didn't expect him to pull a Hulk on me because I thought, I'm going to play a bit wider, but I'll bring a Hulk anyway because it's gammas. Nope, another Hulk. So, yeah.
They're just absolutely everywhere. It's the gamma shelters, honestly. Those gamma waves turning everyone into Hulks.
100%.
How did your team get on overall in that round, Chloe?
So Kev won again, and then I think the rest of us. Kev won, Vickers won, and that was it. So we had two more wins, and then everyone else lost.
It's fine because I think that's what happened with ours, isn't it, Rhys?
Yeah, that kind of until the last round, that was kind of what kept happening to us, wasn't it? That we were kind of one win away, and then it all went a bit downhill.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was round 2 the round? I'm pretty sure it's the round where Lewis thought it was round 6, and that meant he was going to win. So he didn't bother moving group, and then his opponent Will was like, "Right, so we're going to the next round." And Lewis was like, "No, I'm ahead on point. It's round 6. I'll win." And Will was like, "No, mate, it's round 5."
Oh, no.
And that sort of backfired as Groot, obviously as slow as he is, because he hadn't moved anywhere the turn before, then wasn't able to do anything to stop Will from clutching it back and winning the game.
Yeah, that was kind of. I mean, things like that happen, especially when it's hot as well. Kind of.
Yeah, of course. It's happened to everyone. There's so many times I've played a game where I thought it was a different turn to what it is because either myself or my opponent or both of us have just forgot to move it or it's been nudged at some point. But like I said, it's a team event, and the main thing for me, really, as part of a 5-person team, was that it was quite enjoyable and just a laugh to be around everyone and to take part.
Yeah, we had a good, just generally good time, didn't we? In between rounds as well with Jonah and Quinn's team and Ron and all that. So yeah, it was just chill, wasn't it?
In round 3, we'll quickly go over the games and then we'll move on to our next subject. But in round 3, I played. I can't remember the name of the team. I think it's something quite funny, like Daredevil's Catholic Guild.
Oh, that's exactly it. Daredevil's Catholic Guild.
The Irish.
Yes, the Irish indeed. I remember now. So, this was I didn't expect this to happen, but there was somebody on the other team that was gunning to play me apparently. So their Web Warrior player basically really wanted to play against me, which I was more than happy to oblige. So we got paired. Rhys, which member of the team did you play against?
I was against Jason, who had an interesting. It was kind of split Brotherhood Guardians list. So I got very confused trying to work out all the potential ways he could go, and so I ended up taking Midnight Suns into him. which didn't work out very well. But I was more expecting the Mystique Brotherhood to come out, and then it kind of went downhill from there when Star-Lord and Ghost Rider and co appeared.
Yeah, Brotherhood and Guardians is a really strange sort of pair of affiliations to put into one roster. Off the top of my head, I can't even think of anyone that shares both affiliations.
Oh, there is no one. I'm pretty
No,
sure
there is.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to figure it out then. I'm like, no, I don't think there is. So that's quite interesting to hear. How did you get on in that game?
So it was Senators and Superpowered Scoundrels. So we had a full 11 points to battle over. It was kind of weird. I don't quite Hulk kind of. I brought Immortal Hulk, not normal Hulk. Immortal Hulk, and he was hopping around the place trying to clear things out, but which he did to an extent. But I just kind of didn't have enough bodies. A lot of my characters died quite quickly. I didn't have enough bodies to pick up all the Senators that were dropping like flies in the middle of the board, and especially the Senators stopping you from moving twice was a bit of a pain because I could go and pick them up, but I couldn't actually do anything once I was there, and then I was staring down a scary, Rocket and Star-Lord and Agent Venom and a whole gun line. So
an
kind
entire wall of guns, basically.
Yes, a Winter Soldier as well. Just all the guns, all the guns you could ever.
Yeah. Basically, whenever this team, the Irish team, I think it was, built this roster, they essentially chose to give all the guns to one character. It's one member of the team, it seems, which is fair enough because it makes a pretty solid list. There was a guy that ran it at the York Weekender in Web Warriors where he just had everyone with a gun and it did surprisingly well. So it's definitely one way to do it.
You don't need superpowers with guns.
This is true. A gun is a superpower in its own right, especially if it's Winter Soldier or Agent Venom. Exactly. Rhys, how did you actually get on in that game? I think, did you lose that one to the...
Yes, so I lost. It was 19-12, the final score, but yes, I did. I lost that one.
Well, that's still a relatively close score anyway.
It was definitely, it was close-ish. There was some, I'm sure there was some way I could have, done something else, but it's one of those games where you look back and can't quite work out where it all went wrong, but it was definitely an enjoyable game.
For sure. Chloe, who did you play in the third round? What team did your team play, and then who in turn did you play yourself?
So we went against the Mostly Crying Parents, which was a wonderful name again.
Yeah,
and then I went against Dave Cooper with Spider Foes, which was quite fun. I don't get many Spider Foes games. And we had Mutant Extremis again, and I was having flashbacks to my first game against Rhys with the Extremis console. And Sword Base. That was quite a fun one. It was quite a interesting game for me because it was the first time I'd really managed to get the mobility out of Gwenpool as much as possible with being able to hop free for only one cost with Steve. I had her just flying around constantly tapping consoles, so that ended up being a win for me, which was quite nice.
Yeah, Gwenpool being able to just fly about the table with essentially what is a web swing is pretty cool.
100%. So that was my first win of the day. And I think the rest of us, I think we had a win on Vickers and Kev again. Kev actually came out of that tournament with not a single loss all day, which was quite impressive.
I was just about to say, if you guys are interested, we will swap you Rhys for the Kev that you speak of.
I've personally never seen Midnight Suns before until obviously with Mortal Hulk there's a lot more of them. But I always had this assumption that they weren't that good. But Kev was just absolutely destroying every game he played. I
really like them. I think they're solid, and I've always said they were relatively solid because the place is just very, very powerful. The Siege of Darkness is an insane tactics card as well. It's like their knockoff version of Wakanda Forever, which is really cool. And they've just got a lot of really strong characters. Got Moon Knight, Black Cat is a Midnight for some reason, I believe.
Yeah.
Also got Iron Fist, who is a really good answer to some of those crazy high threat characters. Doctor Strange as well, he doesn't see the table a lot anymore, but he's definitely still a solid contender and can put in work. So
he definitely has a home in Midnight Suns with a bit of extra mobility with the place and getting to
of course Dr. Voodoo, who is just still as bonkers as always.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Squirrel Girl might have him have his number a little bit on that one. I'll talk about that when we get onto the second tournament.
Nice. So as we're going into what was the final round, we got paired up against Quinn's team, didn't we, Rhys?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I mean, like he was getting. Everybody was a bit. Quinn was definitely a bit crazy going into in the last round against. The Bold and the Beautiful was their team name, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Bold and the Beautiful, which is more questionable than funny, but it is what it is. In terms of matchups between both teams, we decided to let Ron play Lewis because Ron was determined to use Squirrel Girl to just instantly kill Thanos, and Lewis had Thanos, didn't he? So we sort of let that happen. We weren't too fussed about the result, as it's the end of the day. Neither of us could have won the event. We didn't really go into it with the intention of trying to, although I did attest and still attest that we could have won it.
You were very confident, and then not. If anybody could have won it at the start of the day, I'll give you that.
This is true, and that was my point at the start. It's anybody's game. Back to the fourth round, though. So we let Ron and Lewis play, didn't we? Rhys, did you say you played Quinn?
I played Quinn, yes. An Avengers Mirror again.
You got dragged down with that terrible burden that is Quinn himself. Although, all joking aside, he's absolutely lovely and he's great to play against when he's telling you what he's doing, because sometimes I think he gets a little bit carried away and forgets to actually tell you what he's doing with his model.
And he did that to an extreme in which for about 80% of the game he only communicated with me in grunts and pointing and kind of caveman like.
I think we were all like that by the end of the day, let's be fair.
But to be fair. but more so.
Quinn had essentially turned into this angry little caveman.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this is true. In my final game, I got paired against Mike East, and I don't know if either of you saw what was happening, but I was convinced I was going to lose the game at the end of round 2. It was pretty horrendous.
Yeah, no, I was standing next to you, and it was kind of. It looked very bleak. I thought the game was over. I thought it was. I thought you lost.
Yeah, just to quickly touch on it, because I've promised Mike that he can join me and we'll run through it in a little bit more detail. But what essentially happened is Mike won priority, took his secures, so we ended up playing Infinity Formula and Deadly Legacy Virus, which isn't really a terrible sort of combination of missions for the webheads. I personally really dislike Infinite Formula, so I wasn't that elated about it. We both built our rosters, and I have to admit, I think I underestimated Prim Syndicate after not playing them in such a long time. At the end of round 1, Mike scored 6 points and I scored 1. And then at the end of round 2, Mike scored 6 points and I scored 1. So going into round 3, it was 12-2 to Mike. And with the combination of that on the scoreboard and how hot it was, I did nearly throw the towel in, I have to be honest. Just because, like I said, it didn't really matter. It wasn't a game. It's not a singles event. We're not counting on this game to try and win the event overall. It was, at that point, very, very hot and everyone was very, very tired. However, Mike and I haven't really had a chance to play properly before. For those that don't know, Mike is one of the great minds behind the Alt Weekender event. He's an absolutely amazing guy. So I thought, I'll persist. And something quite bizarre was happening. So as we were playing Infinity Formula, I found all of my characters had lots of power.
Funny that, isn't it?
Even though it was 12-2 to Mike, I think on turn 3 across the table, I had enough power to sort of all webbed up with Moon Knight. Bucky could Red Fury somebody. Miles, Spider-Woman and Black Cat could all steal objectives. And Gwen had enough power to just pull people off of points. So it sort of became this mad sort of game of trying to score the points and trying to stop Mike from scoring any to the extreme, because obviously he only needs 4 points and he'd have won the game. So at the end of round 3, I think I managed to claw it back to I scored 4 or 5 points and Mike scored 2. Then round 4, I actually stopped Mike from scoring anything at all, and I climbed up to 11. And then I think it meant the game ended 17-14 in my favour. It was absolutely bonkers. But just through moving on to sort of infinity formulas, some really sort of janky plays with Winter Soldier. I think at one point he used Hydra Tactics 4 times back to back to get from sort of halfway up the board to right the edge of Mike's board where Kingpin was stood with a couple of legacy viruses. So it was pretty bonkers. It was definitely a really interesting game. And as I said, I was convinced at one point that I had lost that round, but luckily the webheads, through sheer determination and shenanigans with Infinity Formula power, were able to put the Criminal Syndicate back in line, which was very fun and very interesting. Mike was a great opponent, really, really sound about it, and the fact that he'd gone from this massive lead to suddenly it was really close. So it was just an amazing game, and I said to Mike, it's got to be one of the most memorable games I've had in a very long time, which is all you can really ask for, regardless of the outcome. Rhys, how did your game against Quinn go?
Yeah, well, it was also my closest game of the day, and I think both me and Quinn would say that, yeah, going into the final round, it looked like I'd won it, and because I was kind of I'd played Immortal Hulk with my Sam, and Quinn had gone much wider, and I kind of managed to kill his Sam. Iron Man, we were also playing Infinity Formula, weirdly enough, and Iron Man on one flank managed to kill Captain America, his Sam, and then Hulk and Voodoo and my Sam were on the other flank, kind of killing people on that side. Looked like they'd done enough, taken enough points, and then his Iron Man stepped up, did a repulsor blast into Voodoo, who was injured but full health. Did 5 damage, and then managed to also do a rockets into Sam, who was next to him. Killed Sam and did 1 damage to dazed Sam and did 1 damage to Voodoo to finish him off.
With
and then I lost, with the explosion with the wild trigger, and I lost from there.
Nice. That, although obviously it's not good to have that happen to you, you've got to respect.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, my Iron Man on the other side had been equally kind of blasting Luke Cage, and he killed Luke Cage when with Die Station. So I think just Tony Stark was just having a bit of a mad one in that game.
Well, that scene where he gets powered up by Thor in one of the earlier movies and just almost blasts a hole in him.
Exactly.
Chloe, how did your game in the final round go, and who did you play against?
So we were against the Legion of Foom, which was actually the team that my partner was in. So as we were doing the setup, we were both thinking, let's play against each other. It's the last game of the day. We'll have a bit of fun. Sadly, it didn't happen. But I went up against Web Warriors, and the most shocking thing possible, this was the only game I didn't bring Hulk into. Because I thought, I'm playing against Web Warriors. He's never going to get close enough. Then I do apologise, I can't remember the guy's name. It's Kettle on Sona on Longshanks. And he brings out Hulk with Web Warriors, which was terrifying. As we were doing Research Station as well.
The first time you don't have your own Hulk
as well. And I'm getting hulked by Web Warriors. That was a really, really fun game. It was quite odd with it being Infinity Formula, because the stealth meant I couldn't hit him. But because of the same stealth, he didn't want to move off the objectives to get me. Yeah. So it was Hulk trying to fight the Research Station against Gwenpool and Steve, whilst in the background, Crimson Dynamo was constantly shocking him. So it was a really close game, I think, up until his Hulk finally got finished off. And that was probably, I think, from Gwenpool hitting him repeatedly with her spender at this point and just dropping him with him being on fire, shocked, stunned. He didn't have a good time, but that was a really fun game at the end of it. Kev again, of course. Kev ended up actually going against my partner Athena in the end. So that was her first go at going against Midnight Suns. I thought it was Asgard and Midnight Suns just attacking each other, but she actually brought down his Immortal Hulk with, for some bizarre reason, Hela, of all things. I don't see that killing him, but apparently Reign of Hell twice will drop an Immortal Hulk even with his immortality token on him.
Well, the thing is, she is the goddess of death, so
she
if
wanted
anyone
that soul back
that can deal with an Immortal Hulk, it's going to be the crazy goddess of death that collects souls. So it sounds like you had a really good matchup there as well, Chloe, and a really great time, which, as I said earlier, is all you can really ask for from a team event. It is largely about the social aspect. I know full well that some people go trying to win the event. Namely, it seems teams from London, because those are the two teams that met in the final and battled it out. Big shout out to the London B team that came first.
Now the
London A team that came second.
Yeah, B is for best.
B is for best and A is for, well, I'll let people figure out what A stands for. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Something that means second place, because that's what happened in the end. I didn't get to see any of their games, but from the sounds of it, it was very, very intense. Lots of high-level play, even with sort of the restricted rosters that people had to end up taking. So, absolutely great event. Big shout out to Tony for running it. One thing I did notice is we didn't get any international teams from... We got the one Irish team. We didn't get any Spanish teams or...
In a minute, we had a Yorkshire team. What do you mean? We had our White Rose there.
Yorkshire
Count, apparently.
Oh, last year I'm pretty sure there was like a Spanish team and a team from somewhere else as well. I'm not quite sure where.
I think the kind of emergence of the Worlds event happening in Copenhagen in October, I think that's probably
got more busy.
Yeah, it's kind of obviously you can't it's a big commitment for international teams, so I think probably most of them are going to that one instead of this one. So
the WTC, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
But nevertheless, it was a great event. Moving on to Sunday, the singles event. Rhys, you made the decision I sort of wish I'd have made. You didn't play. You just played a bunch of casual games of Shatterpoint.
For
those that don't know, it's some weird little Star Wars game.
weird little Star Wars game. I just after kind of me and Elsa both decided that kind of rather be a bit more casual, not kind of locked into the games and kind of especially in the heat and everything. So so we decided to play some Shatterpoint and had a lot of fun. Played two close games and I'm already kind of in deep on Shatterpoint, so it's definitely a lot of fun.
I have to admit that I've been playing a fair amount of Shatterpoint lately. Credit to AMG, they've made another really solid game system. I don't think it's as good as MCP mechanically, which is due to a few different reasons that I'll discuss maybe at another time.
I can't wait to give it a try.
It's a really enjoyable game, Chloe. You should actually, if you haven't had time.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, I don't know much about Marvel when I started playing this. I do now because I've really got into it. But honestly, me and Star Wars, I didn't need to know much about the game to say I definitely want to play it.
It's quite funny because I'm the other way around. So Star Wars is the one that I don't necessarily know as much about. Obviously, you have the scene with Spock and E.T. where E.T. tells Spock to go home and whatnot. But yeah, so we'll leave the Shatterpoint talk there, as I'm sure I've just upset everyone listening to this.
I'm in pain.
So, speaking of the singles event, Chloe, we'll run through all the games we had. And first game, it's even easier.
It was hot. My first game was horrible. I mean, I don't know about anyone else here, but
there seems to be a pattern emerging here about your first games.
They do. So I decided to swap it up. I'd done a ton of practice with Avengers for Nations, and I thought I started playing A-Force. Let's bring A-Force back out. I'll bring Squirrel Girl. We'll try kill something with it. It'll be funny. And then in the car driving with Athena, because she was playing as well. I said, it'll be great as long as I don't run into any web warriors, because I struggle with web warriors with A-Force. And then I get paired against Aaron in the first game, which was the most demoralising thing humanly possible for me.
It wasn't that bad. I did pre-game make the promise to you that I would use She-Hulk round 1, though.
And I didn't believe it would be possible. I'm going to be honest. I haven't... By other game I'd had yesterday, the last one, I haven't had much experience playing against web warriors at all. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking, surely they can't hit that hard. So I ended up special delivering her into the middle, then went aggressive into your back line. In the back of my mind, I was going, this is going to be fine. I'll probably take some damage, but I'll be all right because I'll be able to then throw you around. It'll be great. No, I won't. I'll drop dead.
Yeah, I don't think you'd considered the fact that my web warriors tend to splash into that a little bit more. So I had Winter Soldier, and thanks to Gwen's movement and sort of being able to pull Shield and Winter Soldier using Hydra Tactics thanks to Advanced D, it meant I was able to get, I think, 2 rapid fire attacks with a reroll into She-Hulk, followed by a Red Fury with a reroll, and then the 2 free rapid fire attacks, both with a reroll.
And with Moon Knight's rapid fire as well, and I'm fairly confident I got Ghost Spider kicking me as well twice.
It was pretty crazy. There was lots and dice being thrown in the first round, and as promised, I managed to take out She-Hulk.
You did?
However, in the later rounds, things got a bit dicey as Gamora and Angela were not very happy about it, and you did nearly kill the entirety of the team.
Yeah, I think you had a healthy Miles and a very injured Moon Knight and a very injured, I think, Gwen at the end of that, maybe.
I think it was Black Cat. I'm pretty sure Gwen...
Black Cat, yeah, because Gwen got punched to death. Well, I figured after losing She-Hulk that quickly, and I'd already kind of jumped into the idea of going, I'm probably not going to out-objective Web Warriors, so let's have some fun. Let's see how much can I table Aaron and lose horribly on points. No. I very close. It was a lot of fun, in fairness. I don't think I've had Angela resist that much damage in a very long time.
Yeah, she was horrible. I think for the entirety of the singles event, I kept having problems with Angela. She just kept doing my head in, to be honest. I think it was the spirit of A-Force coming back to bite me.
In revenge, thankfully.
Yeah, for sure. In game 2, Chloe, who did you play against then?
So, having already said I don't want to play Web Warriors, I then go up against Ian with Web Warriors. Another Web Warrior player with Paranoia and Mayor Fisk. So I actually thought, I'll be in for a shot with this. I've just had lots of practice with Aaron. Mayor Fisk is fairly decent because it's going to, again, make them come into me. And it started off really well. It was fairly even throughout. But I got punched to death by Web Warriors. It was so bizarre. She-Hulk did last past turn 1.
Woo.
But she didn't actually really get to do much. I'm going to be honest. She spent most of the time sat on Mayor Fisk. And I couldn't be bothered shaking the stun I kept getting. So I had almost no power generated at all. It was... Angela, though, did survive till the end. And she kept beating people up.
Yeah.
But that was a closer game, though, I will admit.
Which is always what you want. Mayor Fisk is horrible.
Well, I don't know why people don't like that. It's for me. I really like playing punchy lists, and I love Mayor Fisk for that because it pulls the opponent into it.
It does, but the stun is just horrid on everyone.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
In our last battle report that we did on the channel, I think Magneto kept getting stunned by it, and it was just absolutely doing my nutting. It was so infuriating. Just the way it stunted his power gain. Really, really annoying. Funnily enough, in my second game of the singles event, I played the person you played against in your second game of the team event, I think. So I played Jed, which is who you played.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Jed was running Defenders, which is a team I haven't seen across the table for a long time. And I was kind of shocked that with it being the singles event and he had the choice of every affiliation, he chose those. But it's fair play. Everyone has the affiliation that they like. And surprisingly, the Defenders are pretty decent if you've had a lot of reps with them. So Jed had quite a few characters. Can't remember who exactly. He definitely had Doctor Strange as a leader. He had Hulk, and he had vision as well. And then I think he had one more character on top of that because I'm pretty sure he's only 4 wide. I just can't remember who it was off the top of my head. And we played. I think I lost priority. So Jed won priority, which meant we played Demons Downtown from his secures and Paranoia from mine. We played at 19 threat, which seemed to be what I played the majority of my games at. It was a really, really close game, right up until the very last turn, where I'd sort of managed to get the majority of the Paranoia tokens, which meant I was also able to get the bonus point, as well as the Interrogate and 2 or 3 of the Demons, which led to a huge swing in points, which meant it ended 21-10 to the Webheads. It was dicey at some points. A lot of my characters were quite beaten up and injured. I'm pretty sure I had a couple KO'd from Hulk, as although I was managing to stagger him every single turn, he was able to get a jump into an attack, into a throw, which is just brutal. For those that don't know, I don't run Brace for Impact, so I have to take those full force to the face sometimes. But it ended quite well for the Webheads, ultimately. During round 3, Chloe, who did you play against?
So I went up against, finally, not a Web Warrior list. I went up against Graham Allenson and his Asgard. And this was quite a really fun game. It was amazing. It was so much fun. So we ended up with Montesi and Gamma Wave. So it was just a mess of a brawl in the middle. He brought everyone who had throws. So he had 4, obviously, Valkyrie, Beta Ray Bill, and Hulk. So we had another Hulk off, which was quite fun. She-Hulk having a go at his. But it was because I was finally up against something with some high threat. I finally got to break out Squirrel Girl in Inexplicable Demise. And this is where I ended up finally getting a hang of how her character works. I had struggled a little bit having tested her beforehand. So I got quite a lot of power by turn 2 and threw Tippy Toe straight onto 4, which meant he couldn't kill Shuri in my backline for about 2 or 3 turns.
That's brutal.
I will admit to him that he was a really sporting player, but his dice were just not playing ball, sadly. It didn't help that I had Stalwart Determination, so he couldn't push or throw with the entire team that had throws for a round, and that's probably what won me it. We did try Inexplicable Demise into Hulk, and we genuinely thought it got off until we realised the only thing I'd missed was a swirl. So close.
I heard so many stories across the weekend of Squirrel Girl almost killing someone. I think Ron was the best story because he tried to do it in his 3 games, and he got everything bar the skull at every game, and then into Lewis in the last round, he had the perfect opportunity as it was into Thanos, and I'm pretty sure he just rolled 6 or 7 skulls.
It was 6 skulls. There they were.
Because he needed just 1 in every other game and gets all of them at once at the end. In my 3rd game, I played against Ollie Lowe, who had a very angry team, even compared to yours, Chloe. So Ollie was running Malekith Cabal with Hulk.
Ooh, that's very punchy.
It was very punchy, and to top it off, I won priority, which is fine. That's what I needed, realistically. So I went with my secures, thinking, his extracts aren't that bad. There's only 1 I don't want to play. And of course, we end up with the 1 I don't want to play. So my secures are all the D-shaped missions, so it's sort of not that varied. I know if you were playing more secures, that's going to be the setup. That's a rough plan, and that's how it's going to go. However, from his extracts, I managed to choose Research Station. So
yeah.
That ended with him choosing the lower threat value of 16, and me just looking at him going, "You're going to take Hulk, Malekith, and a free threat." And he just went, "Yep." And I was just like, "Oh, great." So I spent a little while trying to figure out what I was going to take. At this point in the day, I was beginning to really lag. It was really, really hot.
Again.
Which, didn't help. I'd ate our Subway lunches, but with how hot it was and how sweaty everyone was, I think it sort of was still not enough food to stop me from feeling a little bit lightheaded. I had a lot to drink as well. So about 67 cans of Monster by that point, which was helping me not die, but also probably in the long term, definitely helping me to die. regardless of that, I finally decided on the team I was going to run. And the biggest decision for me was what to take instead of mission objective, because I'd run the same 5 tactics cards for every game I'd played across the entire weekend so far, I believe, up until that point. And mission objective just doesn't work on Research Station because you don't have anything to pick up. So it's a bit of a pointless objective for the mission to do that. I ended up taking Mark for Death, which helped a lot in the end, as going into the game I knew realistically it was going to be a funny one. I didn't think I could try and outscore him just because there's 2 points on that Researcher. So what actually happened is the first 2 turns we both scored 1 point each. As I contested the Researcher or pulled him off it, but then he managed to get back onto it, meaning that we literally just scored a single secure point each. Then in round 3, I'd committed to trying to kill Hulk. Because I didn't think I could kill both Hulk and Malekith. However, I was pretty sure I'd be able to kill one and the weak link that was Mystique. So I set up a big all-webbed up turn. I used Mark for Death on Hulk and was able to push through enough damage from, I think it was Moon Knight, Spider-Woman and Miles to kill Hulk as well as Mystique. By throwing Mystique into Hulk at one point and doing some extra damage there.
Nice.
Then I got a big swing in points. I got the Interrogate off. I think it took me to 6-2 at that point, or 6-3, or something along those lines. And it meant that when I KO'd Mystique during the next round, Ollie was unfortunately in a position where he couldn't quite KO my entire team because Black Cat and Moles still hadn't been injured and they were too far apart to get him one turn, so he didn't have enough time left. And he couldn't score because of the fact that we'd ended up Researcher. It meant Malekith had to sort of sit on it. He couldn't like pick it up and then hunt down my characters like he could with, say, hammers or cubes. But it sort of worked out in my favour in that way. It was a really tough matchup. Ollie played it really, really well. It was difficult, and I did worry at a little point, but once I saw the light at the end of the tunnel and realised I could set it up into a sort of way where I had him in a chokehold and he couldn't stop me outscoring him and he also couldn't KO me, it was a little easier, but definitely a very, very interesting game to go up against 2 such dominant big boys in the current meta and Mystique to back them up. It was intense.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it.
I was going to say, I'm listening to that whole thing. I'm just amazed you somehow managed to pull that win out. I really am.
It was an interesting game. I think there were parts of the game where I got quite lucky with dice and parts where I got quite unlucky. So one of the main things I remember from the game was Hulk activating sort of round 3 when I'm in the middle of trying to KO him with lots of extra dice, extra power. He does an attack into Gwen, and I got 2 crits and a blank. And I'm like, that's fine, that's a good roll. I added the crits, got another success, that takes me to 3. And then I just quickly did my reroll, puts me to 4 successes, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is okay. She's got 5 health. She should survive. And then Ollie's like, I have 9. I'm like, that's not good. So Gwen was just instantly KO'd. I think it did sort of help as it meant she couldn't be thrown into Moon Knight or anyone. But there were just also a couple of situations where I was super lucky where he left a character on 1 or 2 health, which really backfired for him because it gave me the power I needed to do a lot of things. And it also slowed down his plan, which I assume was to try and table the webheads. So a really, really intense game. Probably, it's hard to say. I was going to say probably one of the closest to the weekend, but I had lots of close games, admittedly, including the last one on the Saturday and the last one on the Sunday. Now to talk about round 4, Chloe, we did discuss your round 3 game, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah, that was my me attempting to put a squirrel inside of Hulk.
Yeah,
we did try it again in the last game. So again, to pull back to what I said right at the beginning, I would love to play anything that isn't Web Warriors. And my fourth game of the day was Web Warriors again. So I went against 3 Web Warrior lists in one day.
It's pretty hilarious when you consider there were 32 players, and I think there were only 3 people.
There was only 3, and I went against all of them.
You played all. That's always fun.
Oh yeah. So I went up against the same chap I played last at Nations. Again, apologies, I cannot remember your name. So I knew he already had Hulk because he actually had the same list from the other day. So again, I pulled out Squirrel Girl. We played a big threat, so went up to 19 as we had Mutant Extremists and Gamma Wave, which was quite a lot of fun. It was very, very close. The whole time we were neck and neck with Score. I think he was just behind me. And again, it came down to his Hulk dropping and me being able to pull up to the end. However, for on my end, it's the first time I've gone up against Agent Venom a good few times now. But I'm going to be honest, every single time I've gone against him, I've ended up killing him immediately. Not through the attempt, just I think through sheer luck. The first time I ever played him was at York Weekender, and Bob one-shot him in the first turn, which was hilarious. And then he stood back up, and Bob did it again.
Yeah, so, Bob can be a funny little onion at times. Thinking back to when Ron played him into me, and out of sheer sort of sheer spite, instead of just taking it to the face on whoever it was, I went, you know what? I'm going to lifesaver them into the middle of all of our characters, which meant Bob's explosion hit everyone on both teams and just caused absolute chaos. Ultimately, I think it lost me the game. I think my characters took a total of 13 damage across them. Ron's took 7 or 8. Loads of people were KO'd. It was absolutely chaotic. But yeah, Bob's a right little menace when he wants to be.
No, he's lovely. But again, it was another really close game. Of course, I had to try killing Hulk with the squirrel. Rolled nothing at all. But never mind. But the standout for me was, I'd say, with Agent Venom. I had no idea he had a beam.
He's big angry spender.
He's a big angry spender that also hits everyone around it, and
it's
that
like
ended
a
up taking out
and an area all in one.
Yeah, so I think he ended up taking out Gamora, almost dropping She-Hulk with it. And I can't remember who else. Oh, Squirrel Girl. And it was the first time Squirrel Girl has you ruined it for me. I think I remember you was having a discussion about this. With what happens when Guardian Squirrel activates, what does she do to Tippy Toe?
Yes.
And you ruined it for me by saying she then eats him.
Yes. No one else will listen, but I guarantee this is what happens. So when you use that to stop her being killed, the only logical explanation is that she eats the squirrel. I don't care what anyone else says.
Oh, God.
Well, how does eating a squirrel... No, okay.
She's channeling her Ozzy Osbourne, clearly.
It's like in Super Mario. So, when Mario gets a mushroom and it gives him an extra life?
Squirrels are not mushrooms.
No, but it's the same way that is it
No,
Toad?
can you get high off a squirrel?
It's the same logic.
Has been tested.
He definitely eats a squirrel. I'm going to die on that hill if I need to. That's what happens. That's how she doesn't die. She eats a squirrel. It's like in those Call of Duty-esque sort of battle games where you find an energy bar and it fixes your broken arm.
So you're saying Tippy Toe is just a walking first aid kit, basically?
He's just a med pack.
He's med pack. He's med pack, 100%.
Med pack returned from the dead.
So Venom dropped it to almost nothing. So I had to then try and cap his back point to keep myself in the game. And that it didn't get triggered off of Venom, but it got triggered off of all people, Wong kicking her in the face.
Oh, that's horrid.
And if she had died, I probably would have lost the game. But because you get the place afterwards, she then cowardly ran away from Wong's vicious kicks.
So sometimes it's the right thing to do to eat the squirrel.
I'm still slightly traumatized from it. I am going to admit it was. It's a horrible mental image, and I curse you for every day. And that's in my head.
Well, as I've said, and as I've attested to, that is what happens. So that was your final game of the day, Chloe. So to talk about my final game, I played Cahal he was playing on the Irish team previously, and he is a very, very, very strong X-Men player. We built rosters, and I sort of had a feeling that he was going to play a little bit taller than what I normally would at 17. And with the way my experiences have been against X-Men more recently, it they've sort of turned into a weird attrition team at times. So I opted to run Black Panther and Spider Woman, as well as Miles, Gwen, and Black Cat. The mission we were playing was Spider Infected and Cosmic... No, not Cosmic Invasion, sorry, Riot Spark, which is where a bunch of the healing come from. At this point, Chloe, I don't know about you, Rhys, you'd already left, I think, to go home.
Yes, I had.
So at
Absconded.
this point, I was literally very lightheaded, not feeling great.
Yes. Yep.
And I think it's definitely something to keep in mind for anyone doing a 2-day event that's got 8 games when it's this hot.
Yeah,
I hadn't done one before in this kind of weather.
Well, it was also quite, I think, another point to add with that one is Nations itself, because of how it was getting organised with the team captains, we had longer rounds as well, so it's a very long day.
Yeah, Nation, it was like maybe a 10, 11-hour event, something crazy like that.
Was
it was
really?
9 till 7, so...
9 till 7, yes, so 10 hours roughly.
10 hours in that hotbox.
At this point, it's been 10 hours of intense heat on the Saturday. Going into Sunday, it's been like 5 or 6 hours already. We were ahead of time, luckily, but it was very hot, as we mentioned. Back to the game, though. So I was playing Cahal, it was Spider Infected and Riot Spark. And we had a game that was like playing very close chess for a while. So the first turn, I managed to score 5-4. However, Cahal then scored 5-4 on the second turn, which took us to 9-9. Then I believe the turn after that, Cahal took a 1-point lead, something around about 12-11 or 11-10, something along. I think it was 12-11, something like that. Then in the next round, we both scored. I scored one more than him again. So it was like 5-4 to me, 5-4 to him, 5-4 to him. And then I scored one more than him. That meant we both ended on 16. So we had to do another round. It wasn't quite 5-4 every turn, obviously. Otherwise, one of us would have been on higher points at some point. But it was 16-16. Then going into the final round, all I could do was apologise to Carl because I was that hot and that like sort of not feeling great. That there'd have been a couple of times where I'd knocked some train over and it had bumped a couple of his models or it bumped a couple of mine, which really isn't great. And all I can do is apologise because that's not what you want in a game, you know, where the measurements are so important and positioning is so important.
But it's always going to happen. Like it's human error and just generally. I mean, I'm a clumsy often as well when I'm trying to pick up my models and things.
Same. That's why I put mine with resin bases. The harder to nudge.
That is true. So at this point, I just said to Carl, like, look, if there's anything where it's quite close or like a push or pull, if you wouldn't mind, I'll just place a measuring tool. You just move the models, and that made it a little bit easier because Carl was, a much sort of tidier at that point with moving the minis, which I'm super grateful for because the last thing I wanted to do was affect sort of the board state at all in such a close game. And it came down to Carl was scoring 3 points and I was scoring 4. And I think Carl could have moved on to an objective with Angela, which would have tied us again at 2020. Oh, sorry, at 1919. However, looking back now, I didn't even realise at the time, but what I think he'd planned to do was to move once with Angela, throw some terrain at Gwen to KO her and make her drop a Spider Infected, and then use his second action to hit her in a way that put her onto an objective, which would have actually meant he scored 4 and I only scored 2. However, what happened is he moved up to Gwen and threw this size 3 piece of terrain at her, and she dodged nothing. I thought, okay, this isn't good. And then he did a sword of stars. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it Xiphos or Xiphos?
Xiphos.
Sword of Xiphos.
Yeah.
And he rolled 3 successes into Gwen, which I thought, okay, that's not a huge amount she can live. I rolled my dice, I don't know if he had 3 or 4 successes, but it essentially came down to I was blocking 1 less than what he'd rolled. So the entire game came down to this Web Warrior reroll, which is insane. It's literally, for me, the closest game in a long time. So it's like 1 Web Warrior reroll. So I grabbed the dice, rerolled it. Luckily for me, it came up a wild, which meant that Gwen survived. So the game ended 2019 in favour of the Webheads. And it's quite interesting because a few people have asked me why I don't run for Brace for Impact, why I take Patch Up instead. And in this round, Gwen had previously survived something on 1 or 2 health, and Miles had moved, patched up to full health, and then just moved back onto the objective. And I sort of deliberated whether to do that for quite a while earlier on in the round, because I was like, it's not really an effective use of Miles Morales' power or actions, because he only had enough power to move, healer, and move back. He couldn't even use a web swing so that he could get an attack off. It was literally move, patch up, get back. But that is what I decided to do. And then afterwards, when he threw the train at her, it meant she lived on 1 health. So I suppose, in a way, if I'd have took Brace for Impact, it would have had a similar effect. But my argument is that Patch Up, you get use out of it in every game. Whereas Brace, you might not necessarily. But it was a super, super close game. All credit to Carl for being really understanding of the fact that I was not feeling great at that point. Ended 2019, like I've said, and it was just a great game, which meant that overall for the singles event, I managed to go 4-0, which meant that Pat and I were the 2 undefeated players, which was really fun and really great. I'm glad there wasn't a 5th round though, because I think I'd have honestly conceded. And
there was some people even saying, "Is there a 5th round?" And I think that came down to people just being a bit delirious.
Yeah, I genuinely think I'd have just been like, look, if we have to play a 5th round, you can just have it. Look, I felt dreadful. I didn't get a chance to go outside at all during one of Carl's game because of how sort of close it was and not wanting to waste any time on the clock. So I just felt absolutely awful. And I was just like, yeah, I really hope there isn't a 5th round. But as I said, it meant Pat and I ended up undefeated, which was Tony's plan all along with the number of players. So we both got the undefeated awards, which was great. And it was a really solid event. As I said, the only sort of downfall was the heat, which I just wasn't prepared for in the slightest.
No, I don't think there would have been much way of getting around it as well. I think it probably would have been better if it hadn't been Leviathan's launch weekend as well.
Yeah, because it was constantly rammed. The store was the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Even from the Friday, it was just absolutely rammed with people. For those that don't know, Leviathan is the new 40k starter set, and it's selling like hotcakes. There's also sort of the recent Magic set, because there was a pre-release on Friday as well. So the entire weekend's got to have been close to 1,000 people in and out of the doors. It was bonkers. Really, really busy. But that's what you want to see in sort of local gaming stop. You want to see them doing well.
Yeah, they had an entire back wall covered in them, like orders to be collected.
It was bonkers. So overall, a great weekend, a great pair of events, really fun time, really great social aspect. The one thing I did want to talk about before we sort of round off this episode is there any characters or tactics cards that were in either of your rosters that you didn't use at all across, well, for you and I, Chloe, the 8 games, for you, Rhys, the 4 games. We'll start with you, Rhys, as you've had to sit and listen to Chloe and I for a while.
Yeah, no, it is. I think the only character I didn't actually use on the day, which is very weird because I normally play her like all the time when I play Avengers, was Miss Marvel. Weirdly enough, I don't quite know how that happened because, like I say, I love Miss Marvel and I think she's a really good piece in Sam Spam. But yeah, she's the one that I actually never put on the table.
Did you manage to use all 10 of your tactics cards?
I think I did. Oh no, I didn't use Warpath, which was one of the cards that ended up in there, because didn't have access to things like fullback due to the nature of the team event and things like that. Yeah. But and and one time I did put Bird of Prey in my roster. I couldn't actually use it because my opponent had no flying characters. But I had no other. All my other tactics cards were character specific to characters that weren't in my roster at that point. So so I couldn't really use it. So I used everything except Miss Marvel and everything except Warpath. I think I managed to actually use.
That's really interesting because for those, we probably should have gone over this earlier, but for those that don't know, the team event format, you have 5 rosters essentially in a team, and you can't have any duplicate characters, you can't have any duplicate tactics cards. I was lucky enough to just be able to take my normal roster essentially minus Mystique, but for the purpose of looking at what I used and what I didn't use, I've just essentially treated it as if I had Mystique in my roster on the Saturday because I didn't use the character that I had instead, which would have been Baron Zemo. Chloe, is there anything you took that you didn't use on either the Saturday or Sunday?
So for me, it was mainly. Well, actually, no. There was actually no. On both events, there's a lot I didn't end up using actually. So for my Avengers list, I didn't bring out Black Panther once, which is very odd. I'd used him a lot in testing, but having so many 4 threats in my list, I was having a hard time just to choose what I wanted. I originally had him for the movement and him just being a little bit tankier, but I found I had a lot of competition between him and Gwenpool, and I always saw Gwenpool as just being better, with able to move without having to move, really.
Yeah, I've heard some really interesting sort of stories about Gwenpool shenanigans under sort of Steve Rogers and other characters.
Yeah, she's fantastic in the list. She did really well throughout Nations. And then I didn't use Bird of Prey either. I only used Sam once, and again I didn't run into much that was flying. I had Grievous Wounds as well, which I never used, but I never came across anything that it would have been effective on, so that's probably with that one.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. What about on the Sunday?
Well, I had a lot I didn't use for my A-Force. I hadn't used Shuri in quite a while, so I got her in almost every game that she worked, and she did really well. But I didn't use Domino at all the whole time. I used to have her in for the guaranteed Incinerate, but again, I'm getting that from Gwenpool. Well, it's not guaranteed with Gwenpool, but you're getting more use out of it. Again, it's a 4 threat to a 3 threat, but shouldn't get used there at all. And then tactics cards wise. I actually used everything. I even managed to get off a Daughters of Thanos at one point. So as much as I thought I didn't have as much to use. Thinking back on it, no, it was really just Domino I didn't use. I didn't use. Don't think I used Captain Marvel at all either. Actually, for my A-Force anyway. Again, I kept running Gwenpool. I was having so much fun with her. She worked.
Well, that if you've got something that works, ultimately there's no reason to change it. Which sort of sums up how I felt about my roster. So as I said, these numbers are going to be a tiny bit off because I had identical rosters except for on the Sunday I had Mystique with Deception in my team, and on Saturday I had Baron Zemo. And as I didn't know what to take as a 10th card, I took Black Onslaught because I thought that would be quite funny. Which, it made a few people laugh, which is all you can ask for. So, but looking at my characters in my roster, I actually managed to type up roughly exactly what I had in my list and how many times I used it. So, character-wise, I used Miles, Gwen, Black Cat, and Spider-Woman in every game. So, 8 times, essentially. Then I think I used Moon Knight 6 times, I used Winter Soldier 5 times, and I used Black Panther twice. So, I've got a good amount of use out of those characters. However, I didn't use Toad at all. Not once. Which really surprised me, as normally he makes it into quite a lot of my teams, but I think this is largely down to the fact that I didn't play 18 threat or 20 threat the whole weekend.
I was going to say, was it the threat values just kind of didn't add up that you needed the
yeah,
2 at any point?
I've got a note of the threat values I did play, which I'll run through quickly in a minute, but I didn't play Toad at all, which really surprised me. I also didn't use OG Venom at all, who was in my roster. He's always been in my list.
Sad.
Normally I use him once or twice in an event, however both times in these events I didn't use him. I don't think this was down to threat value, I just think this was down to sort of the threat values where I would have considered using him. He just didn't seem like a good choice. For example, into Guardians and into X-Men, where you've got to be really careful of those energy attacks. Admittedly, I have moved towards using him only at 20 threat, so I can go 6 wide fully affiliated. And I didn't play 20 threat either, so that might be part of the reason. Lastly, obviously, I said I had Mystique on the Sunday and Zemo on the Saturday. I didn't use either of them at all either, so they're really amazing characters, but I just never found a time where I wanted to use either of them over what else I had. Moving on to my tactics cards, and there is even less diversity. So I used Patch Up, All Webbed Up, Spider Tracker, Advanced R&D in every single game I played. So all of those cards got played 8 times.
They're pretty good. They are pretty good cards.
They're very solid, and like I said, if it works, why change it? Then Mission Objective, I used 7 times. And the only reason I didn't use that 8 times is, as I discussed earlier, I had a game where I played Research Station, so it couldn't have done anything. And in that game, I just took Mark for Death as a substitute, which worked out pretty well. So Mark for Death, still pretty useful, still pretty glad that I had it in my team. My other 4 tactics cards, which I didn't use at all, were Lethal Protector, which is obviously because I haven't used Venom. Aunt May's Wheat Cakes, which is in the roster for the Webb's mirror match, but I didn't use it when it came up, as I just ended up deciding it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Double Agent, which is specific to Spider-Woman, which is a really interesting one. Chloe, have you used Spider-Woman at all?
Yes, I used to have quite a good solid couple of months in my A-Force list. And I found Double Agent to be interesting, but I was running into play because it is a card that your opponent can play around as well. So in some cases, I was finding myself losing priority when I needed it because I'd played the card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a bit of Hydra with Spider-Woman, and yeah, I found Double Agent was like, yeah, I feel like there's something there, but oftentimes I didn't really want to use it because I didn't want to activate Spider-Woman early, and yeah, it was all it's a very interesting card, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I just, even though I use Spider-Woman every game, there wasn't a game where I looked at any of my other tactics cards and went, you know what, I think Double Agent would serve me better here. I suppose I could have taken it into the Research Station mission, but the problem there is I was 99% sure that I'd never have priority, which sort of nullifies its effects in a way. I mean, I could have taken it and putting it on Ollie's Mystique, which meant if he didn't go with her first, I'd possibly end up double activating Spider-Woman. But even then, I don't think it would have been a great choice, so I'm not really quite sure about that. Lastly, obviously, I didn't use Black Onslaught on the Saturday because I can't actually use it.
Well, we worked out you could play it in your team if you only played Winter Soldier and chose to be Black Order affiliated.
Yeah, so if I took one character, the Free Threat Winter Soldier, and chose Black Order, I could have technically taken it, we think. But I didn't do that, surprisingly. And then, of course, I didn't use Deception at all, which is specific to Mystique. Again, probably because I didn't use Mystique at all. Well, definitely because I didn't use Mystique at all. So that was really interesting. But as I said, I kept track of the threat values that I played across the day. And despite the fact that I have got Fear Grips in my roster, which is an 18 threat mission. I have Deadly Legacy Virus, which is 19, and Paranoia, which is 16. I then also have Riot's Cosmic Portals and Spider Portals, which are combinations of 17 and 18 threat. I ended up playing 15 threat once, 16 threat once, 17 threat twice, and then 19 threat 4 times.
Wow, that's
is
definitely
quite bizarre.
Yeah, I know Lewis at a Bristol tournament a few weeks ago. He also played. I'm pretty sure he played 19 for 4 games in a row. I don't know why 19's coming up so much, but obviously it's I
think it may be down to the fact that I did end up playing Deadly Legacy Virus, I think 2 or 3 times from my own deck of cards, and also once from an opponent's. So I'm not quite sure why it ended up coming up so often, but it did. But I just found it quite interesting that there was sort of a third of my characters I didn't use and half of my tactics cards I didn't use. So I'm currently looking for replacements and suggestions for what might maybe work with the webheads. I don't know if you guys have any ideas.
I've kept thinking Domino would be quite a good add-in for webheads, personally.
She's very spiky, isn't she? And I think she definitely like.
I think for me, it's not a case where she's spiky for damage. She's spiky for tanky. So
Yeah.
if you don't want, if you're having to play Ghost Spider around a lot to get your lifesavers in, she's a character you don't necessarily have to have positioned for that. She can sit on objective because she's got a very high chance of being able to defend herself quite well for a free threat. And she does pump out quite a bit of damage as well. I think the other problem is she's a bit slower, and that's the only thing.
With the medium move, which is pretty standard for other characters, in a Web Warrior roster, it's sort of go fast or go home, isn't it? She's got a lot of movers and a lot of characters with places. A few people have suggested Lizard, which is an interesting choice. I know that Connor likes running Lizard in his webheads. And then there are some sort of out there choices, sort of like Rhino or Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah, Beta Ray Bill was the one I was thinking.
Yeah, it goes everywhere though.
Beta Ray Bill is it's kind of like Beta Ray Bill and Rhino are the kind of go-to fours at the moment, I'd say, aren't they?
Quite funny because I can't get it out of my head that Beta Ray Bill is a 5 threat. Obviously, he's not. He's a 4 threat.
But it's because he usually has such an impact that in your mind he is a 5 threat for how well he's doing.
And can I make a point? He's somehow size 2. He's a giant horseman, and he's somehow size 2.
I learned that in the Asgard game I played, as Valkyrie could throw him, and now it just shocked me.
Yeah,
that's quite funny actually. He is rather big for someone. He's rather little for someone so big. When you look at the character, isn't he? He's almost as big as Venom, isn't
he? Yeah, well, I think what makes it is cape is quite flowing, so it takes up a lot of space on the base of the model, and you've got lightning.
Flowing cape, isn't it? That makes everyone think it should be size 3. Well, as I said in the Incredibles movies, capes are no good, and I'm sure it that's the reason he dies sometimes. It's that cape getting caught.
Yeah, that's what Valkyrie grabbed to hit him. I think even though I think at one point I want to add for my end from Sunday is so I only really didn't use Domino. Towards the end of the day, I was really wanting just to play leaderless. Having played Run She-Hulk into Web Warriors so much, I felt like I was wasting 6 of my threat to take my leader, which is a horrible thing to think about with your roster, but I couldn't see it. She was not getting much work done with webheads, especially after that horrible first game where that person I played just immediately killed her.
Yeah, what?
So that's something
it's definitely
I'm
a line
play with.
to play leaderless A-Force, because you're right. Sometimes when it's awkward when She-Hulk's not good for you, but it's it feels like it's kind of a bit of a tax, doesn't it, to have to play her every game.
For sure.
100%.
Just to quickly talk about 6 threats, one thing I have considered is putting Hulk in with my webheads.
Ooh, yes.
But it
works.
I've never used such an expensive character. 6 threat is so much. To me, that's Black Cat and Moon Knight, or that's Winter Soldier and Moon Knight, or Moon Knight and another Moon Knight. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot of threat.
It is two good characters.
But it is, for me at least anyway, it really threw me off having run into Hulk in Web Warriors twice over 2 days. Because, yes, you can always ask what's in your opponent's roster, you can check Longshanks, but let's be honest. Most of the time I don't bother. I'm sure a lot of people are the same. Because you like the surprise. I do. Then I was just like, webheads, I won't bother taking Hulk, and there he is.
Yeah, so maybe I'll put him in. It's definitely food for thought. I just want to say a massive thank you to both of you for joining me today. I promise this episode will go up, as things have definitely cooled down a lot in my own personal life, meaning that I've got the time to edit these things and get them out there and onto YouTube. I'll hopefully be sorting out this as a sort of podcast rather on Spotify, maybe some other platforms, which will be super interesting to see. Chloe, if people want to find you, they can do so at Chloe Paints.
Yeah, on Facebook. I'm going to be honest, I do need to get that page up and running again. I've got quite a lot of projects coming up. I think a lot of people have probably seen my Iron Maiden inspired Dark Dimension list, so that's getting painted actually as I'm currently been talking to you guys, so that'll be fun.
Nice. And then Rhys, people can find you at Rhys and Lewis Incorporated, I guess, or on some social media sites, and in plenty of them
on Twitter. I think I'm at it turquoise. And I just want to say we've got a tournament going on down in Swindon in July the 16th. So if anybody's down south here and wants to come along, then yeah, feel free.
And is that at Firestorm Games Swindon?
Yes, Firestorm Games Swindon. Sunday the 16th. I think we've got the Longshanks up, just under like Marvel Swindon protocol, I think. So, you can find out everything. I think there's.
I'm going to quickly look now, Rhys, actually, and see if I'm at work or not. The 16th, I am working from 2 till 10 in the evening, so sadly I won't be able to make it. It'll be a great event. That is pretty much everything for this podcast episode. I think we're just going to call it the Nations and Infinity event, although there are some funny stories we could use. We could call it the Sweatbox. We could call it sort of the Performing Monkey event. There's plenty of options. Isn't there, Rhys?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, both of you, for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been the third episode of the Web Warrior Protocols podcast, and hopefully we can get you on at some point, whether together again or individually in the future. Rhys, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you very much for having me.
And Chloe, thank you for joining me as well.
Yeah, lovely as always.
And we will speak to you guys and see you guys next time.
So guys, thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe if you enjoy our content. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to all of the channel supporters and a huge thank you to the channel's patrons. You guys help us to continue buying new things for the channel, whether that's terrain, gaming mats or recording equipment. If you'd like to become one of the channel's patrons, you can use the link down below in the description, and once again, thank you for watching.